your team actually put together an 850-pound brownie that made it all the way to Jimmy Kimmel's show. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to our Trade to Black podcast. Thanks for checking in. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Today, we want to talk about cannabis, medicinal cannabis. Are we seeing growth across the country? Of course we are. There's a lot of interest garnering, a lot of interest amongst investors in this space as we look at the midterm elections and more states starting to legalize recreational cannabis and what that means for you, the investor, and what companies to look for. So before we get into today's podcast, we want to share, obviously, the information and questions that you want to know pertaining to this industry. Leave us a comment below. We want to hear your feedback. We'll reach out to the thought leaders as usual. And we'll also click on that bell for all notifications and subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. All right, let's get into today's podcast. Let's welcome in. He's the Chief Revenue Officer of MariMed, and I'm sure very happy times in the office today, knowing the news that came out earlier this week regarding the midterm elections. But Ryan Crandall joins us, and great to have you on. How are things?
Great, Shad. Thank you very much for having me on. It is a very exciting day in cannabis today.
No kidding. It's always an exciting day, but especially today. News obviously has gone live in both, not live, but was voted in favor in both Missouri and in Maryland in the midterm elections. I'd have to ask, and I'm sure your investors would like to know just the vibe and the feedback as to what's going on in the office right now based on a lot of that news.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of excitement. We did believe that both Missouri and Maryland would pass, so seeing that actually happened is fantastic. We have growth plans that rely on both of those markets next year. So the ability to accelerate some of the growth that we're seeing in those markets is really exciting.
Well, I wanted to have you on today. We've got a chance to meet a lot of the executive team from MariMed. Wanted to have you on, Chief Revenue Officer. You're on the front lines, and you hear a lot of information that I think the everyday consumer would like to know and like to learn from for the overall growth, not only for your company, but the industry as a whole. So what I want to begin with is when we look at the long-term sustainability of the growth of this industry, it comes down to the quality of product. And a lot of times there's a lot of companies out there that claim they have superior product, but challenges come into play. Is the product good? Is there consistency? So the first thing I'd like to ask, based on a lot of stories that you hear and feedback that you hear, what do you think the industry maybe is doing right? Or for that matter, what do you think it needs to improve on when it comes to, I guess, the consistency and quality of product?
Sure. I think, there's a wide variety of product available for cannabis consumers. And some of that is state to state with the brands, only present one state or two. But I think what we've seen in cannabis is a wide variety in terms of quality, a wide variety in terms of taste quality, efficaciousness of the product. So I think there's a lot of folks that are rushing to get products to market and not necessarily as focused on the quality of those products or the feedback from consumers on those products as they are getting the order. And so I think longevity around product in cannabis is really about getting reorders on products. It's not about making the first sale. It's about making the repeat sale.
Right. That's a good point. Because a lot of feedback that you receive is a lot of companies are thinking money first before actual what consumers want. You brought up the idea of what consumers do want. So what's the right approach? What's the right strategy that you do to make sure that you're listening to what ultimately the consumer wants? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how fancy the brand is. It comes down to the quality of the product, right?
I think it's a huge part, right? I mean, I think MSOs in general do have good reach, right? They have the ability to create products in a lot of states and meet a lot of consumers. If everybody has inferior products win. But as products start to separate from the herd and have real points of difference versus the competition, I think ultimately, those products do succeed in market with the consumers. And I think paying attention to, what the consumer trends are before you develop a product, both inside cannabis and outside cannabis, really truly understanding who your consumer is, and then being, secretly very passionate about the products we're creating and really making sure that it's a taste, it has to be superior taste and it has to be superior effectiveness. And then the brand has to pull it all together. So really being focused on that is important.
Well, let's dive into some of the brands and products that you have. I see the logo Betty's Eddies in the background there. And for a lot of, I think, cannabis consumers that are up to speed within this industry understand what it is. But for those watching and understanding and learning more about this industry, we educate people on what it is. And what it is a number one seller. It's popular in all these different markets. Most edibles that are created are in a gummy formulation, where this is a saltwater taffy, similar like, say, a Starburst. So I'd like to get an idea as to like how that idea was all created, and more importantly, just, I guess, stories that you can share on why it's so popular and how effective on how much it sells.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, Chad. I think Betty's in and of itself. I mean, we looked at Betty's when we started as how do we have points of difference against products that we see out in the market, and there were a lot of folks doing gummies, there were a lot of folks doing chocolates, and
Yeah.
we felt as though there was a sliver of the pie that wasn't being represented well around fruit chews. And when we looked at convenience stores and how general non-cannabis candy sells, fruit chews
Mm-hmm.
are a major component between Tootsie Roll and Starburst. And so we felt as though there was a real opportunity within cannabis to do those products or products like them, but do them better with better quality ingredients, with a better ingredient story, with more limited ingredients to support people that are lactose intolerant or gluten-free or vegan,
Okay.
and really creating those points of difference out of a product set that we felt was underrepresented.
So let's back up what I just said about being a number one seller. What can you share as far as stats as to how the product has sold in? Well, let's first find out what markets is the product available in.
Sure. So the product today is available in Massachusetts, Maryland, Rhode Island, Maine, Puerto Rico, and soon to be Illinois and Missouri.
Okay. And then based off of those markets, what can you share trending wise as to like how it's performed? Like, do you have an idea percentage of market share that you have, and some of the feedback within those markets as to like why people love it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Betty's in Massachusetts has most recently risen to the top brand, top product within the state regarding gummies and or confections. So that's been a pretty consistent story for Betty's in Massachusetts since the inception here. We were the number one product in Maryland for 2 years plus.
Yeah.
We ended up having to take our high dose products out of the market, which kind of handicapped us for about the last 12 months. We're about to add high dose back into the market, above 10 milligram servings, and we believe Betty's will rise again to that first spot in Maryland. In Illinois, early on, before Betty's was even on anybody's map, MariMed had a licensing agreement with GTI. Betty's Eddies
Yeah.
was GTI's number one selling edible in the medical state of Illinois prior to rec for several years. So, in some
It
very
was the number
large
one seller.
medical and adult use markets, Betty's has positioned itself, along the sides of Wana and Wild and some of the other really leading edible brands in the country, and outperformed against those brands in most circumstances.
So this was through your partnership at one time at GTI, a number one seller is what you said.
Yes, correct.
So do you plan to dip back into the Illinois market?
Yeah, we actually have a concrete plan to open our own processing center in Mount Vernon, Illinois,
Okay.
by middle of next year, and we anticipate Q3 to be launching Betty's as well as Bubby's Baked and Vibations, our cannabis energy drink mix, all into that Illinois market in the second half of next year.
Do you get a lot of feedback from people from that state that ask about it? I'm assuming you do.
Constantly. I mean,
Do you?
constantly. Yeah, I mean, it's a constant stream since 2020. We still have, I mean, people posting on our regular Betty's Eddies posts on Instagram, like, when are you coming back to Illinois? Clawing for us. So there is a pent up demand. There's an excitement for the brand in Illinois, and we're really, really excited to bring it back and capitalize on that.
They need it because the Bears stink, don't they?
They do, man. They do.
Sure, there's Bears fans won't appreciate that, but
They need it. They need it
yeah,
more than anyone.
exactly. So how big of a market? Like we talk and we hear a lot about Illinois. Illinois is a huge market. So what does that potentially do, both short term and long term, on your growth once you actually re-enter back into that market?
Yeah, I think it's tremendous upside for us. I mean, we've got 4 retail stores that are open in the southern side of Illinois. that currently doesn't sell any of our products in the state. So we're very excited to have, flagship stores to really, have our products, displayed properly and sold as well as they can be. And we have an intent to wholesale to every store within the state. When we were with GTI at the time, there were 55 stores in the state. We were in 53 of those 55 doors. We were the most widely distributed edible product in the state. So, there's over 100 stores in the state with more to come. We're very excited by the opportunity to get back into every one of those stores and all the growth stores as well. So it's upside for the Betty's brand. There's tremendous upside for the Bubby's brand as well as the Vibations brand. We'll bring all those edible brands to market in Q3, like I said.
Right.
And we've got flour and some ancillary other products under the Nature's Heritage brand coming online at the end of the year in Illinois.
When we talk about branding in this industry, no surprise, there are a lot of limitations right now as to what you can and can't do. So if I were to ask you 3 quick things top of mind, what are 3 things that you need to do, given the current conditions in the medicinal cannabis industry, that you need to do when it comes to branding? What are 3 things that come to mind?
I'll tell you, it's almost like be a lawyer. Reading so many regulations, that's the name of the game. I always say this to the team, the challenge is the opportunity. And that statement, the challenge is the opportunity, is really meant to say you got to be a student in every market every day. Okay. And identify the challenges that are coming up for your brands, and then figure out how you're going to deal with it. How do we have to remove fruit from the front of a label? Do we have to change dosage? Do we have to change ingredients and formulation? You literally have to be so agile and so willing to change to be able to get a national cannabis brand in multiple markets. And so we feel like that's become a core competency of the product team, is really looking forward at the markets that we want to be in, looking through the kaleidoscope filter of what their regulations are, and then modifying our brands as appropriate, to the best of our ability.
Based off that feedback. Well, you talked about changing and listening to what people want. You read a lot of stats right now where alcohol sales continue to downtrend and the consumption of cannabis continues to increase rapidly. You being on the front line, do you see that firsthand based on the conversations that you have with various people that you're meeting across the country?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, dramatically. I think there are more, and we haven't seen social consumption yet on any type of scale in the United States. So I think when people truly have that option of, do I go to a bar or do I go to a coffee shop that allows cannabis consumption, I think it's going to be interesting to see that divide.
I think so too.
Yeah, so I think that's all in front of us.
Well, you forecast, like you understand data, and that's your background. And, data is everything when it comes to looking at consumer habits, consumer spending, what people want, what they don't like, what they want to see different things packaged, what works, what doesn't, all that sort of stuff. When I think about forward-thinking statements with this industry, and you tailor your company and your brands based off of that, when you compare cannabis to alcohol and the social aspect of it all, where do you think it is 5 years from now, how that looks? Do you have an idea?
It's a great question, Thad. I think my hypothesis on where that is, I think...
I bring that up because every other commercial during a sporting game, it's like beers, that type of thing. You see 30-second ads during the Super Bowl. Do we start to see different bars like that type of thing where it becomes like cannabis beverages is going to blow up? So you talk about traditional beer pivoting to craft beer. Yep. And does that eventually pivot over into cannabis beverages and so on and so forth?
Well, and I haven't seen it for myself, but what I understand is happening in Wisconsin is that there are bars, that serve alcohol that are also now serving cannabis beverage.
Right.
So, I always thought that was going to be the skull and crossbones, like you could never mix the two in the same establishment. But that to me that's interesting. So if that happens and they allow establishments to do both, I think the adoption is going to be much more rapid than if they continue to separate the two.
The world's going to become a happy place, right?
Look, Amsterdam's not a bad place if you've ever visited. It's a pretty relaxing, great place to be.
Yeah. I'd like to find out more too. When you're speaking to, well, first off, let's get to understand a little bit more. Like you being a chief revenue officer, what's your role, what's your duty, and what's a day consist of in your world? What's it look like?
Yeah, I mean it's typically a call every morning with our president and our COO. We meet at every morning at 8 a.m. Monday through
Yeah.
Friday, and sometimes on the weekends, catching up on all the things that we need to accomplish in the day, or kind of any items that kind of pop up. I have a wholesale and licensing team that runs our wholesale operations in multiple states, and sales teams and brand ambassador teams below them. So typically every morning I'm on the phone call with our VP of sales and/or one of the state sales managers, working through transactions and deals, and how do we do more with folks? How do we build those relationships? And then, the other part of the day is typically focused on retail sales operations and,
Okay.
promotions and loyalty programs. And, what are the metrics from last month? How do we improve upon them? How do we put good incentive programs in place for our bud tenders and for our customers? So, I'm really every day laser focused and truly, consumed by evaluating our wholesale business and evaluating our retail business, and figuring out how to grow both.
Well, your team has a lot of great out of box ideas. I brought this up before in previous interviews, but for those new watching this podcast, your team actually put together an 850-pound brownie that made it all the way to Jimmy Kimmel's show. Whose idea was that?
I mean, I wish I could take credit, but a gentleman named Howard Schachter, our chief communications
Howard.
officer, yeah, I mean, he brought it to me at the end of the year last
Not
year.
500 pounds, not 400, but 850,
I've got
right?
to be honest. I was against it. I said we got to
Why?
focus on, because I mean I just felt like time is of the essence, and we do a lot with a little. So every distraction is a real distraction, but it ended up being one of the best distractions we've ever had. Right? I mean, it was just simply me not understanding PR as well
Yeah.
as Howard, and
Yeah.
it was absolutely a fantastic.
So
Event.
further to that, do you guys find that PR kind of program, did it work? And could you measure that sort of thing?
I mean, we measured impressions. You certainly out talking to dispensaries, they already are aware of the brand, so the awareness has certainly helped. The rollout of Bubby's recently, just now in Maryland. I mean, at the
Right.
point of sale that we have, it's the 850-pound brownie. It's our team in the background. Really proud of what they've done. So it absolutely has helped awareness. The product's fantastic. So the product really, without the 850-pound brownie, sells itself. That being said, the 850-pound brownie helped with the awareness in each one of these markets tremendously.
So talk more about the Bubby's brand then. What exactly is it for those that don't know?
Yeah, I mean, Bubby's is really a brand based on fresh baked goods, right?
Okay.
That also have a high shelf, a decent shelf life, right? I mean,
Okay.
it's 6 months plus, and you're getting a soft cookie, a soft brownie. And that was really what it was all about. When you think about in the grocery store, the red pack soft baked cookies, you got your Chips Ahoy cookie that's very dry, you got your Oreo that's very dry, and then you have these soft baked. And so we felt as though everybody that we had seen making baked goods in cannabis were making dry, stale baked goods. So the real opportunity for us was to come out with a baked good that was delicious with or without cannabis and stayed soft using natural ingredients. And our food science team really knocked it out of the park with Bubby's. And you'll be seeing, we've got a brownie, a
Why
snickerdoodle.
are more people doing this? Like ultimately, at the end of the day, it just comes down to pure fundamentals, giving what your consumers want. Like I hear a lot of stories about got superior product, we're hooking up with this celebrity, we're doing this. You take a bite and the product's terrible. And you see that time and time again. And again, I want to emphasize to my audience, this information we're sharing is backed up based on data that you have and the actual revenue that's being produced. Because I had CFO Susan Valera on recently, and she's like, just our medicinal umbrella alone, we have 3 shifts working around the clock basically on product that's being sold. So what is it that you're doing that other people are not?
I don't think we're trying to do everything, right? I mean, there's
Okay.
been over the
All
years,
right.
it's like, why not do a chocolate? Why not do a this? Why not do a breath inhaler? Why not do and, we've said no to a lot, to our credit. I mean, there's a lot of squirrel in cannabis. And, one of the things that I believe, fervently is that you got to have focus. And it's hard in cannabis when there's so many products, so many SKUs, so many categories to have focus And we really do a good job of focusing where we have competitive advantage, and we're constantly trying to innovate in new categories where we can have
Yeah.
competitive
Yeah.
advantage. But we really do laser focus on the places. We don't do things we're not good at.
Yeah. So you say focus, right? I'm sorry. What'd you say? Exactly, right? That was a joke. Anyways, but yeah, that's a good point. Focus on one thing and do it really, really well. And that's how you actually build a name brand, and you get everything that you want long term. And that's a repeated customer. Speaking of customers or consumers that come into the space, what are you finding are habits for outside of the repeated customer, the connoisseur that understands the industry? What are trends or habits that you're seeing for people that are, say, switching to alcohol that enter into cannabis? What are things that they look for the first time? Or I should say medicinal cannabis.
Sure. I think one of the things that we see commonly is that folks that either used cannabis 25 years ago or never have used the product and are re-entering the category, if you will, they tend to trend towards edibles,
Okay.
specifically low dose
Oh,
edibles. So really, having a suite of products that cater to those folks, and then having an education platform around your products that really, invites them in.
what
And
are common questions do you think they have off the top when they enter in the space? But I would think the dosage obviously is at a top of awareness or top of mind when they ask the question, right?
Yeah, I think it's dosage and it's ingredients for most people. Like,
Okay.
a lot of medical folks have other medical issues going on, so they're worried about sugar, or they're worried about, gluten, or they're worried about lactose. So, having different diabetics, so having different options for those different crowds that are medical is a key. But I think more importantly is really the dosage for a new user, and helping them understand what a suitable dose might be to start, and where they can graduate to if comfortable.
Well, suitable dose. Like, what are some of the options that you provide?
Yeah, I mean, we make everything from a 2 milligram tablet all the way to a 50 milligram chew in terms of edibles, right? We make a 2.5 milligram beverage in a powdered drink, and we've got some more lower dose products slated for 2023. So, with Betty's, the lowest milligram we make in a chew is a 5, but
Okay.
we help people understand they can take a third of that or a half of that and really meter their way into the appropriate dose for them.
Big difference between taffy and, let's say, a gummy, because I've had product before, it's been given to me only to find out 20 minutes later the product's melted and you don't know how much is involved in a full packet of gummies. And that's what I think, you want the consistency, where if somebody's going to try something, let's say small, especially if they're new to the industry, they want to make sure they understand what the product is, what the dosage is, to get the same effect every time, right?
100%. Yeah, and look, and if you're selling a product in Massachusetts and you decide to go to Vegas or to Puerto Rico, if it's a confection, you're probably going to have a different cooking temperature. You're probably going to have
Yeah.
different storage conditions. So making sure that your product can work in Colorado where the elevation's higher, right? I mean, these are all real considerations for having kitchens in different states and different geographies, and understanding that you have to figure that out is part of the opportunity. The challenge is the opportunity type of stuff. But the reality is figuring out that for each one of the brands and the products is a very important piece.
John Levine's been on in the past, talks about you being a multi-state operator. That's the hunter, not the hunted, not looking to get acquired. And you look at the products that you're selling and continue to sell out and be industry leaders. When you look at the overall growth trajectory of what you're seeing, how bullish are you on just the overall expansion of your business model as this industry continues to expand?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been more confident in what we're doing. I mean, I
Why is
started at
that?
MariMed. Well, it's really because of the momentum.
Okay.
I think, cannabis continues to throw hurdles at you, and you get very accustomed to having a lot of challenges, kind of appear at your door on a Monday morning.
It's
And
every day, isn't it?
it's like Monday through Friday, right? So becoming accustomed to those challenges, becoming accustomed to being agile, we've done that over the years, and I think we've got an experienced team here that's used to it, doesn't complain about it, and quickly finds solutions. Now, that's just solving problems. Why I'm so bullish is because of our growth trajectory. I think we're doing a great job in the markets that we're in. We have a great templated approach for retail as well as our wholesale and brand business that we can start to plug into some of these markets we understand very well. So I think we can start to multiply our growth and our revenue by applying what we've learned to new states that make sense and that fit our filters.
What makes your team good? Because you hear that a lot. And if I'm an investor, I want it. Like, you better make sure that of course, your team needs to be qualified, needs to be industry leading. It's like any business saying that we've got great service. Well, I would hope you have great service when you enter into like an industry like that. But
Right.
what would you say are unique selling points amongst the environment that you're working in based on the team that's leading the company?
That's an intangible, right? It's like, why is that team that doesn't have all the best players, the highest priced players, winning the World Series, right? Like, why does that happen?
Good point.
There's some type of intangible there. But what I can tell you about that is that, from the top to entry level positions within MariMed, there is a culture here, and it's strong, and it's very passionate, and it's rewarding. And I would say that we really do love to promote from within, and we've got a lot of folks that started in trimmer positions that are now in operations and management
Yeah.
positions, and folks that started as food scientists that may run all of R&D for the company. So there are so many great stories of supporting the people that have produced during the hard times for the company, and
Yeah.
we're asking those people to do more. We've got a great culture here. We've got and so the last piece of it is we've started to bring in people like Susan Belair, who just literally, it normally takes people weeks, months to come up to speed in this industry. I feel like on day 3, the lady was able to really, really hold
Uh,
her weight on everything regarding our business. So, finding people that can quickly immerse themselves into this business and provide value, and then really elevating the people that have been putting in the time and hard work in this business with us over time.
what's your background? What were you doing before cannabis?
Technology. So I was a computer
Ah,
science major. I was in high tech sales, software sales. Did some
there's
big
your
companies,
data.
and then did some startups. So I'm used to that. Get into something for 2-3 years, really grow the hell out of it, and then look for the next growth cycle. So that's what attracted me here. Truthfully, I was in
Right.
cybersecurity. It was a plenty of growth and plenty of revenue.
I'm sure.
Great market, but I was more passionate about cannabis, how it can help people, and how I can bring my skill set to this company.
Oh, there's nothing more than this industry. It's so, I don't know how to explain it, liberating. It's just everyone you talk to, and to your point, and I mean this when I say this, anyone I speak to, any companies that have huge growth potential and have actually shown huge growth, in recent years, it all comes down on the team that you formed and everybody being on the same page and working towards one common goal. Easier said than done, but if you've got it, then you have a huge advantage. And there's a lot of companies out there that I don't think a lot of investors understand what goes on behind the scenes. Of course they don't. They just hope that they're invested in a very, very good company. But the feedback that I do receive amongst your company is that there's a great just the overall environment that you guys have created again and again. It seems like everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just give him a little kudos. I mean, Tim Shaw, our COO, I mean, really has done an amazing job since my first day here, driving a culture that's second to none in cannabis. And,
Yeah.
part of me always felt like as we got bigger, it would go away. It's gotten stronger, and we all feel it more than we did 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So, he has really kind of been the beacon of the culture at MariMed. And I think there's been a lot of people carrying the torch since he's lit it. So it's a great company here, a great team, and there's no smoke and mirrors there at all.
If you could describe in one word what the Betty's Eddies brand is based on feedback from your consumers, what would it be?
Oh man,
All right,
one
I'll give you two or
it's
three
it's
words.
all about it's delicious, right? I mean, I think most people are going to tell you it's delicious, and that it's more effective than most other products like it, right? We
Hmm.
typically hear a 5 milligram or 10 milligram dose of Betty's feels stronger, hits faster than a competing similar dose product, and then people come back because the flavor, the texture, the experience with the brand is fantastic.
Where do you think this industry is going in the next year?
You know, I
You like these hook questions that I'm going to cut up into social posts afterwards, right?
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Look, where is it going in a year? I think a lot could happen in a year. I think once the election results all pan out, who owns the Senate? I don't think we know that yet. I mean, I think we're all hopeful that safe banking
Yeah.
happens, coming out of the election. We got 2 more rec states. We're excited about that, but I would say I really don't know what's going to happen legislatively over the next year. I can only be hopeful.
Yeah. Great answer. This has been great. I love the stories and information and just the overall trending of like where the overall industry is going, but more importantly, just your product specifically as to why they're an industry seller. But hope this obviously educates our consumers and viewers a little bit more as to like where this industry is headed and what makes a good product in this industry to, I guess, differentiate yourself from your competition. But appreciate the time. I know you're in Boston. Your Celtics look pretty good. Your Bruins look pretty good.
I know.
Man, what a time it is to be since the last 20 years to be a sports fan in Boston.
Yeah, now we
Incredible.
just got to figure out quarterback in New England, and we'll be okay.
I'm from Detroit.
Barry Sanders is my favorite player of all time.
I still like talk and reminisce, even, new generation football players. I actually was watching a video recently where Bo Jackson was actually coaching these little kids in baseball. And they're like, yeah, I won the Heisman Trophy and was like an NFL MVP. And the kid had no idea what that
Who he
meant.
was,
Meanwhile, like Bo Jackson, like, come on. I guess that's showing my age. And like, based on my hairline, I can't really hide it anymore. So there you
You
go,
and I
right?
both, my friend. You and I both.
Okay, tell the team I say hi. Thanks for checking in, and I appreciate you updating us all and based on everything that you're hearing from the company. But again, congrats to you and the company, too, based on the election results in Maryland, Missouri. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Shad.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. So what'd you think of the interview? If there's any information that you want to know more of or want to learn about, then provide us with feedback by leaving a comment below. And if you like what we're producing, then feel free to subscribe to our channel, share this video with your network, and as well, click on that bell for all notifications because we would not be here without you. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching, everyone.